Welcome back, gang. We are now ready to finish off the chat rooms features that we've set up. So let's go ahead and go into the first room, the join room, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So in here, we need to have a list of the users with clickable links to their profile pages. So we're going to have the correct users that are in this room, and we already have a count up here, but I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. And also what we'll do is we'll be able to update this when a user joins or leaves the room. Okay, so let's get started. Let's first go into the join room, into the chat room, and then we'll head over into the text editor. And what I want to do before we get too deep in this is we created a event and listener for the chat rooms. Okay, so I want to go ahead and delete one of the listeners because we're not using it. So it's the new chat message listener. We're not using it, so we can go ahead and delete it from here. And we can also delete it from the list of listeners. We'll keep the event because we do need that, but we don't need it. We don't need the listener. Now we can close up the provider. We can close these up. What I want to do now is head over to the events and go to the new chat message event. Now we're going to need this broadcast to display on our front end for the user, but what we could do also is, even though we have private channel set up, we could also set it up as a presence channel. And if you head over to the Laravel documentation, it shows you how to do all that. It helps with the it is also private, but you also have these different functions available, like here, joining, leaving, and that's all stuff that we need for the chat. Okay, so what we want to do is change this private channel to presence channel. And even though we're using it for chat, we can also use for the chat messages, we can also use it for the entering and leaving of the rooms. So let's head over into the page. So we'll go resources, JS, pages, and we'll head down to the user, chat rooms, show. Okay. So if we scroll down to the connect method that we have here, all we need to do is adjust this private echo call a little bit. So if you go back to the documentation, we'll just copy this for now. Well, actually, if we go down a little further, this is where it explains how to set up the presence channel. But we can copy this one and add it to our show page. Okay, so we'll add this down here. And then we'll just slide this stuff over. Close that. Okay, so now we can change this. First, let's change this room ID. We'll just grab it and put it in here. Paste. And then this listen method, we can just add that here. So copy, paste, and then listen new, we can just take this, copy, and then just paste it in here. And then we can just go ahead and get rid of this because we don't need it anymore. Okay, so now here we want to add users, and then we can add some parentheses around it, equals, and then we can do a bunch of stuff in here. So why don't we just log console log users. Okay, and here and here we're just going to add Okay, we're going to put parentheses and just add user, and then we can do the same thing, equals curly braces, and then we can just leave it like that for now. Okay, why don't we also add the, well, we don't need to. Let's just go back to the page, and if we open up the inspect tools and refresh, we'll go to console. I'll put this on the side so it's easier to see. Okay, so we'll refresh. And now if we open this up, we'll see our username, Gennaro Stark avatar, and our username. So this is the user that we're pulling in from this here. So it's here. So all the users that are here, when a user joins, we'll be able to access the user that joins, and the user that leaves, we can also access that user, and then we can do different functions to update different things. Now if we go to, we can go ahead and get rid of this console log. And if we go to Bootstrap JS, if you remember before, I gave us a console log for pusher. So if we uncomment that, we also get more information coming in from pusher. Okay, so let's go back and refresh that and see what we get from that. Okay, so we see pusher, we have connecting, and then we have event subscribe data, off, event received. This has the user info, and if you take a look down here under presence chat, we now have a count of 1 and the ID of 1 with the user information. So that's what we're getting on the front end, and we can use this information here now to display those users up here. Okay, so let's go back to the text editor. We can comment this back out because we don't need it. We can go back to the show page and start working in here. Now the first thing I want to do is work on the active users up here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable. Go back to the text editor. We're going to create a new variable, and we're going to call it active count. And we're going to make that equal to 0. Okay, so now down here in this users, we can now call that active count. So this active count equals users length, and this is just the users that we're using up here. So now we can use this active count that's coming in here, our data property, and head up to the active users up here. And in the H4 class, okay, we can add a VIF active count. We're using our new data property is greater than 0. And now this, we can just change to active count. Okay, let's make sure that still works. We'll go back to the browser, we'll refresh, and this should still say active users, and we can close this. Okay, cool, there it is. Now we can head back to the text editor, and now what we can do with these users, okay, is add another data property. We're going to take this, and this way we'll be able to manipulate it. So users equals, and then we'll just leave it some empty brackets here. Okay, and then we'll head down and define that user, or we need this to be users since it's an array. Okay, we'll head back down, and so now this users equals users. Now, what we can do to hold those active users is create a new component. Okay, so in the components chat folder, we can add a new component and we'll call it chat actives.view. Okay, we'll just say HTML, then add some JavaScript, and then in the show method, in the show page, right in this div right here, we can just add that component. So chat actives, and then we can pass in the users that we just put in the data property, so equals users, and then we just need to import this chat actives. Okay, so copy paste, highlight chat actives. Okay, cool. So now that we have this property coming into the chat actives, we can close this bootstrap. We can pull in that prop. So props users, comma. So in the template now, we can add a div with some classes. So height full, overflow y auto. Okay, open that up. And now we are going to loop over those users. Okay, so v4, we'll put in parentheses, user index in users with the key of index. And then I'm just going to paste in some classes just to make things quicker. So we have a border, we have some text gray, px4, py, a little hover, some transition, and that's really all that is. Okay, and as usual, I'm going to push all this code up to GitHub so you'll have access to the code. Okay, so Inertia link. Okay, we need an href equals, and just leave it like that for now. And then we're going to have, in this href, we're going to have a route. It's going to be profiles show with the parameter of username, class of flex and items center. And then we're going to open this up. We're going to have an image, and the source is going to be user avatar. Because remember, this is all coming in from Pusher now, from our broadcast. And the alt, we can just use username. Okay, and as usual, the classes for the image are width height, width of 8, height of 8, object cover, and rounded full. Okay, and now we also need to add under the image span tags with the class of ml3, and in that we just need to add user, we need curly brackets. So username. Fantastic. Let's go back to the browser and make sure we didn't break anything. So refresh. Cool. So now we have our user in a hover state. And now I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to log in as another user and put them side by side so that we can see two users now in the chat room. Okay, so now we're logged into, this is user 1 on the left side, and on the right is user 2. So user 2 now is going to join the room. Okay, and now we have 2 users here, and we don't have 2 users here. So we need to add another function to fix that. So let's head back to the text editor. We can now close the chat actives because we're done in there. And then head back to the show page and go down to the connect method. So what we did up here was we got the value of the user's length and used it for our active count property. What we can also do in the joining method now is increase that property. So active count, and then we can do plus plus. Okay, so that'll change that number up top as well. We go back to the browser and see, we'll change this number up here, which it's already here, but we need it to be in here as well. So back to the text editor. So that's going to increase by 1. And then we're also going to add this users, because we have that property as well. Push, this is just basic JavaScript. We're going to push user that we are bringing in here. Okay, so now if we head back to the browsers, okay, we'll do that one and that one, and we'll go out of the rooms for both of them, and then we'll refresh both pages. Okay, now don't worry about these active members that are in here now. We'll deal with those later. This is just what we seeded the database when we were setting up the chat. Okay, so user 1 will join the room. Okay, and now, because we don't have a leave function yet, so that's what you see too, but it's supposed to be like that for now. And then in user 2, we also have the 2 users. So that's what we wanted. So let's work on the leave function now. We'll go back to the text editor. And then for leave, we'll just do the opposite of what we did with joining. Okay, so this now will be this active count minus minus. And then this user's splice. Again, this is just JavaScript. This users dot index of user, and then we also need to add a 1. Okay, so now let's head back to the browsers. We'll refresh this one. See, now it's adding the 3rd one, but it's alright. That should be fixed now. Okay, so now we have the 2. Let's refresh this one as well. And now user 1 has left from this one because we refreshed it, and now user 1 has appeared again. So now we have both users in here. So let's try to, we're going to leave out of this side of user 2. We're going to leave this chat room, and then this user should disappear from this list here, and this should change to 1 active user. So we'll leave here. And as you can see, it doesn't leave from this one. And that's because we need to force an echo leave from the other user, which means we need another lifecycle hook. So if we come down to the bottom, let's see, connect methods, it'll be under here. Okay, we'll add a comma, and then the lifecycle hook will be destroyed. And then we'll open that up and we'll have echo, leave, and then backticks, chat, $, curly brackets, this room dot ID. Okay, so that should fix the error. Let's make sure that compiles, and it does. Let's go back and refresh and see if that goes back to what it's supposed to. So we'll go back to chat rooms, we'll refresh, and then we'll try it again. So we'll join for user 1 on the left side. There's a user. We join from user 2 on the right side. Now we have two users. Now let's try to leave this room. So back. And now the user has disappeared and our active user is 1. Okay, fantastic. So let's head back into the code. And the next thing I want to do is we'll go back to the browser. I want to go back to the chat rooms, and what we're going to do is fix these active members. Okay, so we can go to the database, we can go to rooms, then we can just change all of these. We'll just check all, edit all, and we'll make all the active rooms actives 0. I'll pause the video and then I'll go ahead and change all these to 0. Okay, so I went to the database and just changed all the rooms to 0, so we have 0 on both sides. So now there are no active users. Okay, how we want to handle this is head back to the code. We can close this new chat message up, and we are going to create another route. Okay, so we'll head down to web routes, and then we'll create a new route. We can just copy this one, so copy paste, and this one will actually be post, but the method and the name that we're going to use is update. Okay, so let's go to the controller, room controller, and start working on that method. So we'll head down to user, we'll head down to update, and we'll start working in here. In here, we are already pulling in the room, since we're using root model binding. That's good. So now what we can do is we can say room active equals request count. Now we need to create this in the show page, but we'll do that in a second. The next thing is we are going to update the room. Update the room. So the room will have whatever's in the request count. Okay, so the last thing that we need in here is to return back. Okay, now let's go ahead and put this in the show page. We can close this out, and we can close out the room controller. What we need to do in here is now add a new form. Okay, we can actually just copy this one, copy, paste, and then we'll just change it as we need it. So it's going to be called update user form, and then we're going to need the room. That's going to stay the same, and then we will need to add that count variable. So count will be, it'll just start at 0. Then we are going to head down to the methods, and then we'll create a new method. We'll call it get active. Open that up, comma. So in here, we're just going to say this update user form dot post this route chat rooms dot update, and then we're going to pass in this room. Okay, then in here we're going to just add preserve scroll, it's true, and on success anonymous function, and then some curly brackets. Now this new function, we are going to be using it in a couple of places. So in the mounted section, we can add this get active, because once it mounts, we want to make sure that this is updated already. We don't have to do anything special for it. Now, if we come down to the connect method, okay, we need to use that get active in here. So how we would do that, for the here portion of the echo, we'll just say this update user form dot count, that count that we need to bring in, okay, this count here is what we need to pass into the controller. So this dot update user form dot count equals this dot active count. And then after that, we're going to call the method, and now we'll have a new count to enter into that. So we'll say get active. Okay, we're going to use that one for there. We're going to copy it. We are also going to use it for the joining. And we are also going to use it for the leaving. Now let's head back into the browser, or the browsers. We'll refresh them and we'll see if we can get that working. So refresh, refresh. Okay, so we are now starting with 0. We'll join that room on the left side, and we'll join the same room on the right side. Now we'll go back with user 1. Okay, now you see we have 2 members, but this didn't quite update. Okay, but if we go and look at the database, we'll refresh it. We'll see that there's only 1 active user. Okay, so we need to find a way to make sure that that number has come down once the user leaves that room. Okay, so let's head back to the code, and we need to add another lifecycle hook. So we can do that just before this destroyed. Okay, so we'll say before destroy. And the reason we have to do these hooks is because the pusher is updating it within the same page, but we need to update it on a different page. And that's how we're using this information. These lifecycle hooks are helping us do that. So we'll say if, we'll do an if else. Okay, so if this user's length equals 1, this update user form dot count equals 0. Okay, so that's saying if it's the last user and there's only one user left while it's leaving, okay, then we'll update the user count to 0, and then we'll run this get active method to update it. Else we'll just do this get active. Okay, so now let's try it. Go back to our pages. We'll bring this one to chat. We will turn this to 0. Okay, and then we'll refresh this one as well. So refresh, refresh. Okay, so we're back at 0. We'll join. And we'll join. Okay, now this user leaves chat, and that turns to 1. And now this user leaves chat, and that turns to 0. Fantastic. So one more thing I would like to do, let's go back to both users being in the room. Now what I would like to do is, hang on, I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna open up another terminal, okay, and then I'm gonna run, well, I guess I don't really need to pause the video, but we can do PHP artisan queue work, so that this way we can send messages. Okay, if we head back to the browsers and we need to refresh them. Okay, and let's say user 1 over here wants to write something and add it to this list of messages that we have. So we'll say new message, send. Okay, it works as expected. However, it also scrolls down the page, which we don't want that to happen. We want the scroll to stay where it is. Okay, so what we would do to fix that is we would go back to the text editor, and we are going to create a new method for that scroll, because we want it to have a scrolling feature. So if we go down to, let's see, we can do it above get active. Okay, we'll just call it scroll to bottom. Okay, open that up, comma, let container equal, we need to create this, this is just a variable that we're going to be using. So we'll do document query selector, and then in quotations we need to write hashtag container. We need to add this container up in the template, but we'll do that in a second. Okay, so container scroll top equals container scroll height. Okay, and that will allow it to stop. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and put that also in the mounted. So we'll do it right in between these. So this dot scroll to bottom. We can now scroll up to the chat box, okay, and then we'll add that in there. So ID equals container, and that'll be what it references. Okay, and we'll come down, and now in the submit message method we can add that. So this scroll to bottom, and then we can also add that to the, in the connect, in the listen method. Once the message is push, then we can also scroll to bottom. So this scroll to bottom. Okay, let's go ahead and refresh and make sure that this is working correctly. So we'll come back here, and we'll refresh both of them. And as you can see, that's not working. The reason for that is that if we go back to the text editor and we go up to the styling, this height of 128, this is a custom height that I added. But if you go to, let's see, resources, you go to app.css in the public folder, public CSS, app.css, and you look for sizes. We don't have a size of 96 of 128 in here. So how do we do that? We are going to head down to Tailwind, We're going to go to Tailwind config, and this is where I showed you before, but you may not have seen it because I think there was a slight problem with that video. But if you go down to the extend section, okay, and we can add different things. So under the font family, we're going to create a new key for the height. So we're going to call it spacing, and this is part of the Tailwind documentation as well. So spacing, open that up, and then the size that we need is 128, and that's going to equal 32 rem, comma. Okay, so let's close this. Let's make sure that that recompiles. And now that that's done, we can head back to the browser, and this should work now. So refresh. Refresh. Okay, cool. So as it comes up, you see that now our overflow is working the way it should, which means that our messages will work as intended. So now we'll go to the user on the right and say, let's say another message. Okay, so that went through here, and it also went through here, but it didn't scroll down. So there's one more thing that we can do to fix that. If we head back to the text editor and we go down to below destroyed, we can create a watcher. So we'll say watch, and then it'll be messages because that's the prop that we're calling. We'll say function, and then we can say this next tick function, and then we'll open that one up, and then it'll be this scroll to bottom, the new function that we just added. So let's give this a whirl and see if it does what it's supposed to. So we'll go back, we'll refresh, 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 and now we'll try it again. Something new, send. Okay, cool. So it moved down here, and it moved down here without us having to scroll it. Fantastic. So now we have come to the end of our social network series. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some things that were useful in it for you. Again, as always, if you have any questions, just drop them down below and I'll go ahead and respond to them as quickly as possible. And I'll also be sure to push all this code up to GitHub. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate the support and the positive feedback. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.